I looked at that one time comparing to what I usually do.
Oh, here, let me
But
give
again,
you
I'm
a
pretty
leaf.
cheap, so maybe.
Thank you very
I
much.
always give a hard time because they always leave. Chuck, if
Emotional.
I'd gone after Chuck, you would have left it, right?
No, not today.
I got you.
You've been kind.
Was it all the traditional, who gives you the, and all that? I love that stuff, but as a dad, I'm telling you, I still know. This was your first ever right? I mean,
Yeah, I got two to go after hers.
okay, that's what I thought, you have 3 girls in the room.
No,
We just call them ours.
Congratulations. Oh, it was nice to see you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last week.
Yes.
You what? So we got a week? I'll take some more.
Okay, right now we have 7 people.
I just start putting it.
We do. I do.
I think I put out 15, got 5 left, I just haven't had a chance to get those last 5.
Check, you want some
I
signs?
went
You got
for
some
that
new
press,
referendum
I went
signs
down
of
press
blue.
and something.
Really nice. We did not. How about afterwards, I'll give you some. You got 250 left. You got 1,000.
I know,
Okay.
I saw that too. I'm like, I really can't, what Jimmy was saying was, you couldn't get even the passport at the location, he said, it was in Marion. From your mouth, but I just wish they had settled that case before. Jim's case.
Okay, we'll open up the workshop and go to the budget update.
All right, I handed you new performa sheets. This is, we're getting very close to having everything finalized. We're looking very well compared to prior years. We're ending a little over $1 million in the good. And that's with infusing the self-insurance fund with $800,000. So I would say we're definitely on an upturn. We're almost to our 5% fund balance. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. This year we did add several positions and for the 17 year. So we're still able to do that and keep our percentage up. We've reserved 1.6 for the self-insurance for next year, which we should know something about December if we're going to have to help them out again. So this is where we are right now. We have a little fine tuning to do. Should not be much difference, a couple dollars here and there should be it. And the final budget will come to you at the September 13th board meeting. I will have hard copies of the books and digital copies available for you on September 9th, which is the Friday before, so you will be able to review it over the weekend. And the annual report, the annual financial report will be ready also. Those are all due at the September 13th board meeting.
Just for clarification in the public, this is operations.
Yes,
And I
this is
say
the
that
operations
just so
budget.
that while we're talking positively and we are really good, this is not the capital side of the house.
No, sir.
So I appreciate that. And yes, it's very encouraging. I know Miss Bryant is going to harass us less about those funding balance numbers at the bottom there.
So,
All right, I've got a question.
Yes.
So we are looking at that next to last column on the right, the fiscal year 2016.
yes, sir.
We put in 800,000 into the self-insurance fund.
Yes.
We're going to move that unrestricted fund balance to 4.6, and we're looking at 4.94%, correct?
Yes.
And then next year, though, I look at your 2017 tentative budget. So we're actually going down on our unrestricted fund balance, but we're going up on the percent. That's because our overall budget is less. Is that why it's a higher percentage with lower unrestricted fund
It's-
balance?
The percentage of the revenue. So yes, and the restricted is lower because the restricted is budgeted into the tentative budget. That's why we're now, it looks like we're $2 million in the red for next year. But that's because the carryovers and the restricted have to be budgeted out.
But you are budgeting 1.6 for the self-insurance.
Yes, sir, yes.
So again,
But that's,
why
we
is it
assign
4.2?
that, it has no effect on the percentage. Because that's an assigned amount from us, the school board. The state does not tell us we have to have that. The government does not tell us we have to have that. That's what we have to restrict. Our categorical funding, grant funding, things like that. This is something you decided as a board to reserve it within the county, to reserve within the fund balance.
Well, I understand that, but why is our unrestricted fund balance down and our percent of revenue, so our revenue is less, because we're at what, 208 million and we were at,
Our revenue will be more.
no, our revenue will be less, won't it? For 17?
17, our
We're gonna
total
have
revenue
1%.
is
It's up to 123.
123.
Yeah, but I thought we were taking a 1% reduction overall. The rollback rate was a 3%. It was 3% less, but the overall was 1%. I guess that's
But there's
counting the
other-
capital.
Well, that's
We have
millage,
other,
though.
we have other funding that comes into play besides just the FEFP. Medicaid funding is expected to be up this year as we go out to all the schools
Okay.
and, you know,
That
we
was
have,
just local required effort,
Yes.
though.
yeah, which is
So
just
the
a small
FEFP.
part. And that'll, when you get your budget book, it'll be all broke out to show that, yes, we are getting less in the FEFP or in the local required taxes.
And I was sharing too with somebody this weekend with the tax situation. There's also a little bit of a game that the legislators have done too, and that is that in an election year, they funded more out of the state budget to require less out of the local required effort, to make it look like they cut taxes locally. They didn't, they just allowed more to be taken out of the state budget so they could go back, run for election, and it looked like they cut taxes. So, you know, and I say that, Mr. Dodd, because of you're right, the percentage, I think, on the local required effort was down, but that's not the end of how it gets funded.
But Mr. Dodd's correct on one thing. If the general public sees this sheet,
Yes.
when you've got 4.6 million and you're 4.9%, and you go to 4.2%, 4.2 million, and you go to 5.14%, for your undesignated, I mean, that is confusing to the public. And so, put words in his mouth, I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
that's,
he's just asking for which revenue number do you use to come up with that 5.1?
Use just the general revenue general fund, not the transfer, does not count. And then in the reserves, the assigned amount gets put back in because the auditors do not make us count the assigned as a restricted amount.
So what are the figures, the numbers that you put in the 5.14?
You have the unrestricted fund balance of 4.29. The 1.6 is added back into that, so that brings us up to 5.89.
oh, so. Okay.
And then it's a percentage of the 114.6
So
million.
the 1.6 does get added back into the fund
Yes.
balance.
Yes, because that's not required by law for us to
Self-imposed.
restrict that. It's a self-imposed. That's why it's called assigned. And those were,
Well,
that was a new
I don't know
Gatsby
if I
that
would
came
say
out.
It's required for us to maintain our self-insurance fund though, right? It's required by the actuaries.
But the state doesn't require, a different agency of the state requires it, DOE does not require.
But we decided to make restrict the money, or assign the money, let me use the right term, assign the money out of our general fund to cover the self-insurance if they do not have the reserves that they need at the end of 2016.
And when are we gonna have those figures? You said in December. I know when they met with us on the insurance, we talked about an increase was gonna be required for the self-insurance fund, but I didn't realize it was 1.6, so when do we know?
December is when the actuary report, it's done in January for the calendar year. that's when they have to send their reports to the state to show that we're actuarially sound. So that's the time when we'll know if we're gonna have to infuse them with any money or not.
We will. We
Yes.
will. That'll happen. Of course.
Any other questions? Okay, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
We have 4 policies to workshop today. And I will start with policy 6.25. This is a revision to existing policy regarding staff ethics to address a change in the State Board of Education rules as shown on page 1 of 2, with the citation added or changed on page 2. Be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Nope. The state's doing that, right?
Right.
I,
They repealed code ethics.
That doesn't sound very good.
I know,
we're looking at their decisions in Tallahassee, they did,
so that's why.
you know, my opinion. That's a true story. And you got it.
Because she doesn't care whether you want it or not.
I just thought of that.
Exactly.
Is there a principal professional conduct for others, legislators, commissioners, all that?
That's probably no.
I'm sure there's something, but
Is there
they have a commission on
ethics?
ethics, but they might
Never
wrote themselves right out now.
And don't
That's
they have,
what
they
I was
have
wondering
rules
when you said
committees
that.
that, because they operate differently, because that's why like their ethics aren't in law, it's in their rules, which I guess still have weight of law, but it's not in a statute.
I thought, I asked a question the other day at the policy committee about rules and laws and stuff. Rules are apparently just support, they don't have the same way as the laws.
Oh, then that, yeah,
So,
you're right.
But is that correct?
They have a concept. Don't let you just-
Go ahead and schedule that to set the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. That was a question.
Next item is policy 6.26. This is a request to review a new policy regarding bullying and harassment geared towards employees. If you recall, we did have one geared towards students previously, and we split out the two, so you're now seeing the one for employees.
So Mr. Bradshaw, what's in yellow, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
I have a question on page 4 of 8. It's 4A1. That's where it is, that sort of second paragraph, beginning with including, and it says, physical location or time of access to a computer-related incident cannot be raised as a defense in any disciplinary action. I have absolutely no idea what that means.
Tell me again the page.
On page 4 of 8.
That's 4A.
When I read that, they log in for their whole computer, into the system.
Yeah, that would
You
be,
can't sit at home and say, well, it happened at 11 o'clock tonight, and logged in, and it's my home,
I was viewing inappropriate material from home on my school's computer, and therefore it wouldn't count. You still were using it and doing it inappropriately.
Because there's a lot of bullying and harassment that,
Takes place after hours.
Well, and as you well know, with social media and everything, it takes someone with some intestinal fortitude to get up in your face and tell you something. It takes someone without a background to sit there,
Right.
type it and send it right, So I think that's the reason.
Right.
Okay.
I've got a question. So can a student bully an employee? Is that at all? I couldn't really see in there.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
This is for employees, you have a student, we have a student bullying.
No, but can does this protect the staff member from being bullied by a student? Because
Either
that's,
this one does or the student bullying policy does.
that one falls under the student.
I just wasn't sure that that one always, it seemed like, referred to the student to a student. But if a student tried to make a, I mean, if a staff member made a claim that the student was harassing me,
And I think it would be violating the bullying policy for the students.
Any more questions on
just with this too, we have typically a form that students file for an investigation, or parents file on behalf of the student for investigation on bullying. Will there, in a situation such as this, is it going to necessitate a form, or is it, if I recall, I thought it was notification, but I wasn't sure.
It's notification, and then investigation, and then obviously it's employee that can file, a complaint also.
So that would just fall under complaint forms, and then a grievance would be, if they thought it was an ad, we'd go through a grievance form or something like that.
But
That's a big question though, is you have to have the form filed within the days allowed?
No, I don't think that you have to. I think that this comes on to the administration at the school, or whatever level, that if you come in and say, Mr. Jones is harassing me, doing this, this, and this, it automatically triggers at least 2 or 3 investigations.
It's covered by section 5 on page 4.
Okay, we'll go on to the 6.27.
And the final, there's 2 more. This one is policy 6.27, report of misconduct. This is a citation change only.
Question.
It's been added, and the citation is principles of professional conduct for the education profession in Florida. And what the changes.
And even on this one, just same question about the days filed. It says on page 1 of 3, on the minimum 3, that you have 30 days after the date of the district, that the district became aware of the subject matter of the complaint. The superintendent's file. But if you go to the 31st, does that wipe everything out or
No,
not?
ma'am, I think what the rule is that, if a claim is filed and is legally sufficient, you have 30 days to report it to the Department of Education, which is different than the amount of time that we have to complete an investigation. Normally, the Human Resources Department will do 95% of all investigations before within 30 days. Sometimes there are certain circumstances that last longer. Very good relationship with the Department of Education. Just send it to us. Investigation, but by rule of law, we're supposed to send it to you.
It's not like in law where you go a certain time,
No.
it's over with, you can't do it.
No, ma'am. I think what it is that, so because if it's affected their certification, that they will that we shall send to you.
Anything else? Okay, I guess we now move to 6.30, violation of local, state, and/or federal laws.
Yes, this one is the same, citation change to reflect, new site for principles of professional conduct for the education profession in Florida. No other changes.
Last night I was reading some of the stuff, I was checking some of the staff was reading, the statutes they were referring to. And I'm telling you, some of these things are loosey-goosey, they can be interpreted any way in the world.
God bless America.
The unknown, the unknown.
Jim, any comments, questions on 6.30?
That concludes the workshop. Thank you.
Chuck, you should get your law degree. Do so much of this, you just won't benefit on the other side. that's the end of what I had, and even when we